4 people are dead after a murder-suicide shooting in northeast Pennsylvania. This happened just before 1 this morning at a supermarket outside of Scranton. Police say 24-year-old Randy Stair fatally shot 3 co-workers before turning the gun on himself. The victims were between 26 and 63 years old. One eyewitness did manage to escape unharmed. No word yet on a motive.
Something terrible has happened in this store. It started with locked doors. That night, June 8, 2017, at Weiss Markets in Eaton Township, Pennsylvania, a young employee named Randy Stair quietly sealed the exits. He didn't say a word, didn't make a sound, just locked them, trapping everyone inside. By the time anyone could have realized what was happening, it was too late. So, that's how the horrifying night began. But what made this whole thing so much worse, so much more disturbing, was the trail Randy Stair left behind. He recorded almost everything leading up to his plan: video, journals, all of it. He poured out his thoughts, his obsession, and his strange, dark worldview in his videos and online social media accounts. The clues were there, but nobody really saw it coming, or if they did, they didn't think he'd actually go through with it. Randy had been on YouTube since 2008. Back then, his channel looked like any other young guy trying to make it online. He called it Pioneer Productions. At first, his videos were harmless. Let's plays of video games, goofy little skits with a toy frog and a stuffed whale. It was light, normal, even funny. But over time, his content started to change. Something darker crept in. Danny Phantom, a Nickelodeon cartoon, was his obsession. To most people, it was just a kid's show, but to Randy, it became an anchor. He especially fixated on a character named Ember McLean, a ghost girl from the series.
I've told you about her before. Like, if you look on the poster behind me, those were inspired by Ember McLean, which is a ghost from a TV show called Danny Phantom. But this ghost, this woman always connected with me. Ever since I first saw her, something changed. And it wasn't like I grew up or anything like that. Like I realized, oh my gosh, I'm attracted to girls and all this. No. It just, something changed. It was like a spark. And it just connected with me. It made me feel warm inside. And it felt very familiar, which was strange. It was like I'd seen her before. But at the time, it was a brand new show. And nothing had ever been done like that before with that type of character. Like, you never saw that character anywhere else except that show. And I just grew attached to her, unlike anything I ever have in my life.
By 2010, this wasn't just a phase. It consumed him. He created his own spin-off world based on the show. He called it Ember's Ghost Squad. It wasn't just a hobby. He threw himself into it completely. He made original characters, designed their stories, and even decorated his car and his room with stickers of them. He built his whole other reality where he felt he belonged. However, as he immersed himself in this fantasy, he began to undergo additional transformations. Randy became terrified of getting older. The idea of living past 30 disgusted him. He also wrote this in his journal that he didn't want that. He decided he'd rather die young than face a future he saw as meaningless. That's when his thoughts turned darker.
There would be no possible way I could live until I was 60-something. Not a chance in hell. Honestly, I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people get up every day and go to like a dead-end job, come home, do the same exact routine every day, every weekend. How do you honestly do that? I was never able to compute it in my head. How do you live on this planet for decades upon decades upon decades?
Randy also started to believe he wasn't really supposed to be here, at least not as he was. He felt imprisoned in his body, as if becoming a man wasn't his destiny. He believed he was a ghost girl, like Ember, and that the only way to truly become himself was to die. He became convinced that after death, he joined the world of his fictional characters. That thought gave him comfort in a way nothing else did. This way, he struggled silently with his gender identity. In private, he experimented. stealing clothes from his mom's closet, dressing as a woman when no one was home, and even filming himself. He hated the body he was born into. He called it disgusting and felt like he was stuck in a prison he couldn't escape.
What it came down to was I felt like I was like transgender or something. Like I felt like a woman the whole time, which spiritually I'm a woman. I'm a female soul. But I had to live in a man's body to do what I set out to do. That was my soul contract. That was what I was meant to do.
Over time, his obsession with becoming his own ghost grew stronger. He started skipping meals to look more like the characters he drew. He even shaved all his body hair, but nobody in the house noticed anything. It felt like no one ever noticed him, no matter what he did. And maybe that's when he started thinking he needed to go further, something bigger, something no one could ignore. It was all building toward one conclusion: his obsession with death, his fantasies, his growing hatred for the life he was living. It all combined into something unstoppable. By now, Randy Stair's mind was overflowing with thoughts. His fascination with Ember McLean had consumed most of his life, but it wasn't enough anymore. He started fixating on something else, something darker. He found himself drawn to the Columbine High School massacre. He read everything he could find, from forums, videos, and anywhere he found online. He felt a connection, a disturbing bond, with Eric Harris, one of the shooters, and that connection began to fuel him. In the next few months, Randy's thoughts became darker. His YouTube channel wasn't enough to keep him going anymore. He felt invisible, like nothing he did mattered. He spent his nights pouring his frustrations into his journals, writing about how much he hated people and how tired he was of everything. He began to question his purpose in this world. He thought he'd been born into the wrong body, the wrong life. He wrote that his real self wasn't here. It was somewhere else, waiting for him. At the same time, he was still clinging to his animated series, Ember's Ghost Squad. He poured everything into it, creating characters that reflected parts of himself. The series had gone from a fantasy to something deeply disturbing, and it was clear Randy wasn't just creating a story anymore. He was creating his plan. During that time, Randy was growing restless. He'd initially planned to end it all in September, tying the date to a code he'd created using the letters from Ember's Ghost Squad. But September felt too far away. He couldn't wait that long. In the weeks leading up to June 7th, Randy made his decision. He couldn't wait anymore. He bought 2 shotguns, hid them from his parents.
That just f***ing happened. Oh my goddess. Oh my goddess. I am armed. I am armed.
I got it! I got it! 2 Mossberg 500 shotguns! My boss has been trying to get on day shift or second shift. He had an opportunity to get it, but the way things are looking, he's not gonna get it. So then also put me like on the clock here because it's like he's been trying to look for other places to work. The way I see it, I can just barely have enough time to do all this within 4 weeks. I want it to be the night of June 9th. I can't tell my parents that I have 2 shotguns now. They know I have the one, but then if they see that I have the exact same gun, but 2 inches shorter on the barrel, it'd be like, why do you need that? And that's when it starts to get into like personal stuff. Like, why do you need 2 shotguns? You're scaring me. Please don't start buying more guns. You know, I have all the pieces. I'm just waiting on getting some eyeliner.
He practiced shooting in his backyard and even recorded himself. His journals contained his hatred for humanity, frustration with being ignored, and belief that this was the only way to be seen. Then, with the flip of a coin, he chose his target.
Here's the deal. Got a 1983 quarter right here. Do you believe in fate? Here's the fate test. I'm gonna flip this 3 times, or the best out of 3 rather. And if it's heads, I'll do it here. If it's tails, supermarket. Let's go.
And just like that, the fates of innocent people were sealed. Randy had already made his decision. He wasn't going to wait anymore. For him, it was time. Then came the fateful night of June 7th, 2017. The Weiss Market in Eaton Township, Pennsylvania had the same calm, sleepy air it always did on late shifts. Randy Stair had been working at the Weiss Market for years, but to others, he was just another employee going through the routine. But that night was different. For Randy, it wasn't just another shift. It was the night he had spent years preparing for. He wasn't stocking shelves or tidying up like his co-workers. He was setting the stage for something unthinkable.
But Eric Harris had a white t-shirt, black text, natural selection. I bought 3 of them, yet none of you knew what it meant, which blew my mind. I didn't want to tell you that, so I kept that under wraps. That's a warning sign.
Earlier that day, Randy had posted his final video online. The video showed him loading 2 shotguns, guns he had named Mackenzie and Rachel, after his favorite fictional characters. He stuffed them into a duffel bag and ended the video with a chilling sense of finality. Randy made it clear something big was about to happen. He'd been leaving clues everywhere, cryptic tweets, disturbing posts, videos that practically screamed his intentions. But no one took him seriously. Maybe they thought it was all an act. It wasn't.
What happened? What the happened, man? This is surreal right now, but I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think this is gonna be my last video. I don't know what will happen to my channels after this. I don't know what people are gonna think of me after this. It doesn't bother me, but just looking at everyone at the supermarket, the manager's coming in, just messing around, talking about this, and 4 more nights your whole lives are gonna be turned upside down because of me. I'm gonna f your life up. I can't wait. I want that supermarket to be closed for like a month or go out of business. It's a crime scene. It's gonna be a crime scene.
As the night wore on, Randy's co-workers were busy working, just trying to get through the shift. Victoria, Kristen, Brian, and Terry had no idea their lives were about to change forever. The store was quiet, with everyone focused on wrapping up the night's tasks. But Randy wasn't working. He was quietly barricading the store's exits. He used pallets to block doors, moving quickly and calmly so it didn't raise suspicion. When he wasn't stacking pallets, he was on his phone, uploading videos and sending out his final messages. Every step of his plan was methodical. By the time the store neared closing, Randy had finished setting his trap. Just before 1 a.m., he walked to the main entrance and locked it, blocking the door with another pallet. The store was now sealed. No one inside knew what was happening. Randy, calm and focused, opened his duffel bag and pulled out the 2 shotguns. He had thought of everything, even bringing a second gun in case one jammed. And he didn't hesitate. He was ready to carry out his plan. Victoria and Kristen were working together in one of the aisles, restocking shelves. They were chatting, joking around to pass the time. Victoria had her music cranked up in her headphones, while Kristen's was lower. At one point, Victoria stepped away to grab more labels, leaving Kristen behind. That's when the first shots rang out.
I heard a couple of popping sounds, sort of like a balloon, and then a thud. So I turned to where Victoria was in the aisle to ask her if she had heard it. And when I had turned, I saw Randy at the end of the aisle with his gun, and I had saw Victoria on the ground.
The sound shattered the quiet of the store. Victoria had been hit in the chest. She turned to run, but Randy shot her again, this time in the back of the head. Kristen froze. The noise was so sudden and out of place that she couldn't process what was happening. When she turned, she saw Randy standing at the end of the aisle, Victoria's body on the ground between them. He fired more shots into Victoria before locking eyes with Kristen.
Just kind of stopped and looked at me, and it felt like forever.
She froze, standing there in aisle 16, face to face with the shooter.
For a few long seconds, they just stared at each other. Kristen couldn't move. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Randy, holding his shotgun, looked almost detached. Then, without saying a word, he turned and walked into another aisle, leaving Kristen frozen in place. Terry, the oldest employee, must have heard it. He tried to run, but Randy found him too. He shot Terry twice, hitting him in the back and the shoulder. Terry also fell, lifeless, as Randy moved on.
Instead of shooting me, he walked through the next aisle over and came around and he shot Terry.
63-year-old Terry Sterling of South Montrose.
In the next aisle, Randy found Brian. He shot him 5 times, hitting his arm, chest, and head. 3 of the shots were fatal. Brian didn't stand a chance. The sound of gunfire echoed through the store, loud and sharp. Now, on the other hand, Kristen was still standing in the aisle, frozen with fear. She wanted to believe it was a prank, something that couldn't possibly be real. But when she saw Victoria lying motionless on the ground, reality set in. She knelt next to her coworker, trying to wake her, shaking her slightly. Victoria's heart was still beating, but Kristen could tell it wasn't going to last. She realized she couldn't stay there. She had to get help. She grabbed her phone and dialed 911, whispering into it as she moved carefully through the store. She didn't know where Randy was, and every sound felt like it could be him coming back. As she made her way toward the front of the store, she could still hear gunshots in the distance. Randy wasn't done yet, and she needed to get out. When Kristen reached the front doors, her heart sank. She pushed against the doors, but they wouldn't budge. Panic set in. She threw her shoulder against them, slamming into the doors over and over. Finally, with one last push, the door gave way. Kristen stumbled outside with her heart racing. She didn't want to face Randy again, so she ran as fast as she could. She avoided the cars outside, as he might be looking here too, and ran up a hill to hide behind some bushes. She crouched there, shaking, waiting for help to arrive. Inside the store, Randy was still moving. By the time he had killed everyone inside, he was firing at random objects, shattering glass and destroying merchandise. He also shot at propane tanks, hoping to blow up the store and take himself with it, but the tanks didn't explode. After firing 59 rounds, Randy walked into the deli section. He calmly fired a shotgun at himself, as if it were the last step in his plan. By the time police arrived, it was over. Victoria, Brian, and Terry were all dead.
One by one, the police showed up. They tried to enter the building to see what was going on, and you could still hear the guns going off inside until it was pretty much dead quiet.
3 lives gone forever.
Most people say you are alive for a purpose, for a reason. You just got to figure it out. I don't know my reason, and if I could, I would bring back the others because they didn't deserve to lose their lives that way.
Kristen was the only survivor. She had no idea why Randy had spared her. Maybe it was because they had locked eyes. Maybe something inside him hesitated in that moment, but no one will ever know for sure. The aftermath of the Weiss Market massacre left investigators scrambling to piece together what could have driven Randy Stair to commit such a horrifying act. As they combed through his belongings at home, they uncovered a chillingly detailed look at his thoughts and preparations. What they found wasn't just evidence of a crime. It was a window into a mind unraveling, consumed by obsession, delusion, and despair. Inside Randy's home, they discovered 7 boxes of 12-gauge shotgun ammunition, shooting goggles, ear protectors, and a shotgun buttstock. These supplies alone painted a grim picture of how much he thought he had put into his actions. But the notebooks, drawings, and his computer told an even darker story. Randy had documented everything: his declining mental health, his struggles with his gender identity, and his elaborate plans for the massacre. His journals were filled with cartoons, sketches, and rambling thoughts that blurred the line between reality and his fantasy world. The tapes he released on the night of the attack were the most revealing. Filmed over the course of a year, these recordings chronicled every step of his plan. What stood out was the strange, almost trivial details he focused on. For example, He expressed deep concern that his parents might throw away his posters after the massacre. In the middle of planning a mass killing, he was preoccupied with the fate of his belongings. It was a stark example of his narcissism. He seemed more worried about preserving his image than the lives he was about to take.
One thing I honestly hope that you guys do, give these posters to fans. This room was something special. The posters completely border the room. It looks amazing in here. Nobody's room looks quite like mine does, if you really think about it. It's very unique. I mean, you'll have my phone and all that. You could just post on my social media. Would anyone want these, And I autographed the back of them. I autographed the back of all of them, so, they're worth something.
In these final videos, Randy spoke openly about his delusions. He believed Ember McLean, the cartoon character he had been obsessed with for years, was a goddess. To him, she wasn't just an animated figure. She was real, and she was guiding him. His recordings showed a man completely detached from reality. At one point, he filmed himself sitting in his car outside the store, calmly talking about how his co-workers had no idea what he was about to do. What investigators found most chilling was how meticulously Randy had planned the attack. He didn't simply decide to carry out the massacre on a whim. He had calculated every detail. He knew exactly who would be working that night. He brought 2 shotguns to ensure nothing would stop him, even if one jammed. In the hours before the shooting, he prepared videos for upload, ensuring his story would continue even if he did not survive. And in a final, unsettling act, he sent an email to the actress who had voiced Ember in his animated series. Less than an hour before he opened fire, he thanked her for her work and told her that by the time she read the email, he would already be dead. In it, he wrote about how he believed his videos had a true purpose. To him, they weren't just entertainment or a creative outlet. They were his way of sharing a message, though what exactly that message was remained unclear. It all tied back to his belief that he wasn't meant for this world. Randy was convinced that by committing the massacre and taking his own life, he would become a ghost like Ember, enjoying the world he had created in his mind. The level of planning shocked investigators, but so did the bizarre priorities Randy displayed. In his mind, the massacre wasn't just an act of violence. It was his way of achieving something greater. He believed it would solidify his legacy and allow him to join the world of his fictional characters. This delusion was the driving force behind everything he did. Then there was the toxology report, which revealed another layer of complexity to Randy's actions. At the time of his death, he had 372 milliliters of diphenhydramine in his system, the active ingredient in Benadryl. This was far beyond the recommended dose and would have caused severe effects. He would have experienced blurred vision and unsteady movements. He likely felt confused, drowsy, and disoriented. Most disturbingly, he could have been hallucinating. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. Randy had always claimed he wasn't interested in drugs, so why take such a harmful dose that night? Investigators speculated that he used it to ensure he wouldn't back out of his plan, numbing his fears and hesitation. Anyhow, it didn't fit with his usual behavior, making it seem like a deliberate choice tied to his final act. It's possible the overdose was another way for him to distance himself from reality, to make the transition from his world to the one he believed he belonged to. As investigators pieced together the timeline of events, they were struck by how disconnected Randy had become from the world around him. His journals and tapes revealed a man who felt invisible, unimportant. He believed no one truly cared about him, and this belief fueled his hatred for humanity. But at the same time, he craved recognition. He wanted people to know his name so they could understand his story. It was a contradiction that defined much of his behavior. The massacre itself was horrifying enough, but it was the depth of Randy's planning and the layers of his delusions that made the case so haunting. He had spent years preparing for this moment, documenting every step and leaving behind a detailed record of his thoughts. He wanted the world to see him, even if it was through the lens of tragedy. What he left behind wasn't just a trail of destruction. It was a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked mental health struggles, of the dangers of living in a world disconnected from reality. For the victims and their families, the pain of that night will never fade. And for the rest of us, it serves as a haunting, cautionary tale of what can happen when someone falls so far that they can no longer see a way out.